Opinions and statements expressed in the following program do not necessarily reflect those of WWDB, its staff, or management.
You are listening to In the Know with David O. Informative, substantive, intelligent talk radio on 860 AM WWDB. And now, your host, Philadelphia Councilman David O.
Good afternoon. This is David O, and thank you for joining me and my amazing guests here on WWDB 860 AM, and now, by the way, being simulcast on 104.9 FM. Well, I have to thank Weinerman Pain and Wellness. Please, if you ever need some services in that direction, check them out. They do a wonderful job. They're very well equipped. And best of all, they sponsor this show. So thank you very much, Weinerman Pain and Wellness, and all the folks who sponsor In the Know with David O. Last week, if you remember, we heard from Brent Porsche, who's at WMMR 93.9, about rockin' Philly and, kind of the pathway he had. And it was no easy pathway, and he's doing so much here in Philadelphia for rock. And Todd Harrimans of the Harrimans Foundation, he's been for like 10 years the Eagles offensive guard, and not only an outstanding football player, but what a decent human being and a very modest gentleman. And he's doing some great work with his foundation. And then, of course, an update on One Empty Seat. That's a POWMIA Chair of Honor from Rolling Thunder's national photographer, Patrick Hughes. Well, this week we have three great guests, starting with Jeri Lynne Johnson. She's the founder and artistic director or music director of the Black Pearl Chamber Orchestra. And then we're going to hear from Philly's #1 author of urban novels. And that's not all that he does. He has an amazing story, Jimmy DaSaint. And then we're going to talk about Philly Craft Beer Festival with the founder and organizer, Andy Calimano. Right now, let me introduce you to Jeri Lynne Johnson, or Jeri Johnson. I always say Jeri Lynne Johnson. But she is a graduate of Wellesley College. She also got her master's degree in music theory and history from the University of Chicago, where she won the George Mester Conducting Scholarship to attend the Aspen Music Festival. And she made history in 2005 as being the first African-American woman to win an International Conducting Prize when she was awarded the Takai Concordia Conducting Fellowship. I might be saying some of these names incorrectly, but I'm sure she'll straighten me out. But there's a lot of stuff because, listen, she's very well accomplished, and it's not just here in the United States. So I can't pronounce all of the, the languages that reflect where she's conducted, where she studied, where she's been. So let me just also say that she's out of the box. She's also collaborated at Carnegie Hall with Jay-Z, Alicia Keys, and The Roots. She's been the recipient of many civic and community awards, artistic awards, and she was the 2011 Woman of Distinction by the Philadelphia Business Journal, 2010 British American Project Fellow, 2010 Philly 360 Creative Ambassador for the Greater Philadelphia Tourism and Marketing Corporation, and she's been on shows like 2020's Travis Smiley Show on NPR and many others, but she's here today because she is the founder and artistic director of the Black Pearl Chamber Orchestra, which she established in 2008. And the hallmark of this orchestra has been to bring a younger, more culturally diverse audience to classical music. Yes, that's what I said, classical music. And the Black Pearl has been highly acclaimed with a National Endowment for the Arts recognition and 3 prestigious Knight Foundation Art Challenge grants and many others. And so to tell us about herself and the Black Pearl Chamber Orchestra is Jeri Lynne Johnson. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Councilman. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thanks for being here. For those, who don't know, Jeri Lynne Johnson is a very lovely, tall woman. You would not really say that you're looking at a classical music conductor, right? That's not the image or the vibe that you give off.
I don't know if that's a compliment or not, but
it is a compliment. It is, because if my image of a conductor is like a guy who's about like 60 with white hair and a stick,
and is probably yelling a lot and terrorizing musicians. Sure, well, that I think is a lot of people's idea of what a conductor looks like. Just like before Barack Obama was the first African American president,
right.
Everybody thought that was what the president of the United States should look like.
Right.
So we are living in a wonderful age where I think people's ideas and stereotypes are beginning to melt down and break away, and people are understanding that greatness comes in all forms and all shapes and all sizes, and that there's talent in every kind of person across this country, and all it really takes is hard work, determination, and opportunity, and I think that's what we try to communicate with Black Pearl.
Well, definitely that, and let me add, because I love classical music, but let me add, having said that you also bring like a young, fresh perspective, and a kind of a coolness, right, to the what people think oftentimes is a stodgy type of music.
Yeah, I think classical music suffers from just really, really terrible PR. That it's for just kind of older people. It's not a lot of fun. It's kind of elitist, all these things. And so what we have found at Black Pearl is that people's objections to quote-unquote classical music really has nothing to do with the music. Because when Black Pearl performs, we do Mozart, we do Beethoven, and we do all the same kind of classical music that other orchestras perform. But when people see our musicians who are African American, Latino, Caucasian, Asian, you can be tall, short, gay, straight, trans. We have the best musicians coming from Curtis, from Juilliard, from Peabody, really along the East Coast. We don't care what you look like. You're talented. You're a world-class musician. You're going to be in Black Pearl. And we bring that joy and unity through diversity into the orchestra. And so audiences are attracted to that energy of the togetherness and of the beauty of music making from all these different people. And so it isn't just that people don't like classical music. I think what they react to when they hear, classical music, quote unquote, is this idea that it's exclusionary. And so Black Pearl is putting out a message of, diversity, first of all, is good business. Right. We're going to attract a wider audience base for our concerts, and also that it's participatory for every kind of person.
Right. And you have worked on that. It's not just, obviously excellent music and you yourself, everything you just said, but you actually deal with the marketing and the outreach and everything else.
Oh, Lord, yes. I'm like the head cook and bottle washer sometimes. Like it's just, if anyone would like to volunteer to be my assistant, thank you. I will take the help. My goodness.
Yeah, what is the goal? When you the music's got to be there, and you got that down, you got your venues and everything, everyone's practice, but tell us about the marketing, the outreach. What is that little extra thing that you do, and what are you trying to achieve?
Well, we can always do more, certainly, and that's why we love being on your program, and thank you so much again for being here. I think part of what has made Black Pearl successful really is the word of mouth. That was quite surprising to me when I first started Black Pearl, and we would have these sellout concerts, because, again, we weren't on radio programs. We were brand new. People didn't know about us, but they'd heard about me as a conductor. I used to work with the Chamber Orchestra of Philadelphia, so I had a little bit of a reputation coming in from that. And so people then wanted to bring their kids to see our orchestra because, again, when you're an African-American parent or grandparent and you have a child who's interested in an instrument, but maybe they don't see anyone in their neighborhood who looks like them, who plays the clarinet or the violin, and they may go to another orchestra and they still don't see anyone on the stage. When they come to Black Pearl, they see, there's an adult who's doing this at a very, very high level, and that becomes kind of an end point for them. It becomes we've done a lot of mentoring through Black Pearl for young musicians in the community to say, look, there are role models out there for you who are doing this at a very high level, who earn a living, who have happy lives, who are just brilliant artists. So you can do that too. You're not the only one.
Well, let me ask you a personal question,
Sure.
and that is, why did you and when did you get the idea that you wanted to be a conductor? Because not everybody thinks like, hey, I want to be a conductor of classical music. I want to be an astronaut. I want to be a movie star. Like, how did you say, wow, I want to conduct an orchestra?
Well, in fairness, I will be honest. I've had, as a child, a brief love affairs with astronomy, with Egyptology,
Wow.
A study of bugs. And then music was the one that really stuck. But for me, it was going to see an orchestra as a young child. And I had studied piano and loved it. But when I saw that orchestra on stage, I loved the music so much. But something like, even at 7 years old, I understood that, there's no piano on stage. There's a whole lot of instruments, but I don't see a piano. So if I want to do that music, I'm going to have to do what that man on the stage is doing, moving his arms around, and he's conducting. And so that's when I said, okay, I want to be a conductor. And it never occurred to me, even as a child and even going through the A, that it was weird that I wanted to do this, or B, that I didn't see anyone who looked like myself. My passion was just for the music itself. But as I've gotten older and done more conducting, I began to understand, A, that it's unusual for other people to see me on stage as the conductor,
right.
And B, that I have a responsibility now to be the role model that I didn't have growing up, and that if there's other young people, I just got an email today from a young woman, African American, who said, I want to be a conductor one day, and you inspire me. Can I ask you some questions for my school project? Like, I just get these emails randomly, and it's so sweet to hear that kids, and again, I didn't set out to make a difference. I just wanted to conduct an orchestra. But, as you go along in life, and I'm sure you'll talk to your other guests who have similar experiences, as you go along, there's other people coming up behind you, and we have an obligation to help them out.
Right. Now let's take a break for a second with this question. I'm looking at my studio. Not commercial break. No. Break from the conversation, because here's an important thing people need to know. What is a conductor? What do they contribute? What is conducting all about?
I ask myself that every time I stand in front of the orchestra. But, conducting is one of the purest forms of leadership out there. So when you talk about, political leadership, like you have the president or a senator or the mayor or even a city councilman, or when you have a CEO of a company or even a manager of a baseball team, these are forms of leadership where you're leading a group of people, but you may not see the results of your leadership right away. Like if you're a CEO at a company, you got to wait for that quarterly sales report, or you're going to get, feedback from your employees about the job that they're doing, these kinds of things. But orchestra conductors, our ability to lead a group of people and the results that we are able or not able to achieve are immediately apparent during the concert. So what we do in rehearsal, that's really when the leadership takes place. And so, I do a lot of work with young kids, and also I do corporate workshops, using the orchestra as a metaphor for leadership and teaching conducting to CEOs and to managers at various companies. We've done this for Comcast and a few other people who are interested in exactly how do they hone this notion of creative, compassionate leadership and mentorship.
Oh, that's interesting.
And so basically what I tell people is conductors are the leaders of the orchestra. We don't play an instrument. Right. So our baton is not the instrument. The instrument, the people who make music. So we play the orchestra. So our ability to inspire people, our ability to identify problems in advance, our ability to communicate both verbally and non-verbally through just our attitude, and our body language. How do we inspire? These are the things that conductors are responsible for. If you have a great team like I have at Black Pearl, my musicians, I trust them implicitly to do their job well, to come to rehearsal prepared, to themselves be inspiring musicians. My job then is to take all of that positive energy from about 40 to 100 people, depending on the piece, and gather that, give it a central vision, and then take that energy and put that out into the music and the audience.
Wow, that's a great explanation. I was telling someone today, I think what it is before technology was around, you could turn up the volume, turn down the bass or whatever. There was a human being in front of a bunch of other human beings, and if you wanted to make one section louder, if you wanted to make sure they're on one sheet of music, if you want to inspire anger at one point or sadness at another point, it was that one person with that stick trying to do that whole thing simultaneously, having to know every part of the music, having an ear for everything that was going on, and ultimately that music didn't just happen. And that person, I can't just walk up there, grab a stick, and then start swinging around people. Like, there has to be what you said, leadership. They have to follow you and understand what's going on.
And it's so interesting. You keep coming back to the baton. You know, a conductor with a baton. You know, it's like the orchestra is a symbol for the world, and that baton is like a king's scepter or a queen's scepter. And so we've been symbols for leadership and power for a long time. And what I would like to say to people in positions of power and leadership, if you're listening to this show, is that to lead is to serve. It's important. You know, people ask me as a conductor, well, all that power, do you just know? You know, I'm serving the music. I'm serving the musicians. I'm serving the audience. And I think that's where real power comes from, is your ability to serve and inspire others.
Wow. Now, that's a good segue to this, because you also have a creative leadership program.
Yes. We do. So, like I said, we go into the schools. Part of our education work is using the baton and the conductor's podium as a way to teach leadership to anyone. You don't have to be a musician. You maybe have never picked up an instrument. That's okay. We put the baton in your hand and we start you from the beginning about how this works. And it's been a great success. And we've been able, like I said, to transition that to adults. You know, corporate retreats or those kinds of things. People looking for an interesting way to deal with leadership. You know, I've been in a lot of leadership programs and opportunities where there's a lot of personality tests and a lot of talking about scenarios and things. But I think what's great about what we call it orchestrating leadership is it gets people out of that kind of their ordinary framework. Right. And the orchestra becomes a living mirror for what you're putting out there. And so people learn that what you put out into the universe is what you get back. And so you'll see people trying to conduct the orchestra and they look at me like, well, they sound terrible. Yes, because you look terrible and crazy. Right. So it's not, and again, I mean, we laugh and joke and have a good time. But what people begin to learn is that, you know, the universe is mirroring what you're putting out there. And so if you want to get love and respect and order and beauty and greatness from something, you have to put that out there. You can't just be mean and nasty and crazy and dictatorial and then expect to get something beautiful out of that. And so the orchestra is just a fun way to teach people that bringing yourself into alignment with what your goals really are is a critical part to success.
Right, and in addition to teaching, top corporate leaders about leadership, you also have a program called Conduct, which is a fun reach activity that anyone between the age of 3 and 93 can enjoy, and it offers kids and adults the opportunity to stand up in front of members of the Black Pearl Chamber Orchestra and experience the power and excitement of making music just like a real conductor.
Yeah, wow. When we started I Conduct, I didn't know how crazy it would get. We've had people from the community come up and conduct in bike helmets, doing Beethoven 5, and I think the great thing is, there's what we found out when we started I Conduct was that there's people all over the city of Philadelphia, I think, who secretly dream of conducting an orchestra, and they may be in their bathrooms with the radio on and a hairbrush in their hand, waving their arms around to their favorite recording. And so when we started I Conduct, everyone kind of came out of the woodwork and like, this is my chance to conduct an orchestra. And so again, part of Black Pearl's magic, I think, is allowing people to reach into the orchestra. We're trying to eliminate that perception that, the orchestra is separate from the community. We're members of the community, too. Musicians live right next door to you, and we're wonderful people. We don't bite. And we have lovely attitudes. So, we want people, when Black Pearl goes out in the community, we want the community to come in and have a relationship, not just with Black Pearl, but with classical music. You don't have to only just come see a Black Pearl concert. There's the Philadelphia Orchestra. There's the Chamber Orchestra. There's Opera Philadelphia. There's Settlement Music School if you want to take music lessons. Go out there and pick up an instrument and just give it a try.
All right, fantastic. Now, for people who want to come out and see Black Pearl Chamber Orchestra, you will be performing this summer at the Dell Music Center.
Right. We're going to be doing a few dates at various locations in the city at the Free Library. But our big summer concert, which we always have a great time, is at the Dell Music Center. It's sponsored in part by the Dell and Philadelphia Parks and Rec. And this year we're going to be sharing the stage with Philadanco, which we love.
One of the great, Philadelphia, artistic groups.
One of many treasures. Ms. Joan is just an amazing woman. I look up to her as an artistic mentor. She's just an incredible person. So we're delighted to be doing something with Philadanco this summer at the Dell, July 28th.
July 28th. Is that a Saturday?
That is a Friday. I'm so sorry. Friday, July 28th.
About what time?
7 o'clock. And I think what we're going to be doing this year, we haven't finalized the program yet, but I think we need to do Beethoven 9's Ode to Joy again. That was our first Dell performance, and we had a great time. We invited the community, talented members of the community, if you play the violin or the clarinet or the trumpet, and we auditioned people, and we invited them, if you are auditioned and accepted, to perform alongside us. We'll do a lot of rehearsals, so don't worry if you're a little rusty. We'll get you up to speed. But, we want, again, to send a message of brotherhood and unity through music, and what better way to do that than through, Beethoven's Ode to Joy.
Right.
All men are brothers.
Yes. Now, for people who want to learn more about the Black Pearl Chamber Orchestra and about Jeri Lynne Johnson, do you have a website or someplace?
Certainly. So our website for Black Pearl is www.blackpearlco.org, as in blackpearlco.org. All of our information is on there. You can get in touch with me through our website. I have my own website, JeriLynneJohnson.com. If you'd like to read more, just, look for Jeri Lynne Johnson on Google. You'll find me somewhere.
Okay, perfect. And let me say that first, I do appreciate all that you do, in Philadelphia, not just music, but particularly, in classical music, and you have been also a judge or a host for PHL Live Center Stage in the classical music category, and that's been very exciting for the musicians, and then to get to the Trocadero and get up on stage and, might I say, change a few minds when you walk out there, and people are like, "What, classical music?" Yeah, so that's been very cool. Let me ask you this: have you faced any particular challenges as an African American woman entering into this field and rising up to be like a very well-known person in the field of classical music and being a conductor?
Sure. Well, the story of my trials and tribulation are really the stories of how Black Pearl was founded. I've told many people many times I never ever wanted to be an entrepreneur or an entrepreneur, if you will. Dealing with paperwork in the government is not something most musicians really, gets them up in the morning to do. Right. But, I'd taken a lot of auditions and, was up for a lot of jobs and a finalist for quite a few, and just was not ever able to really be selected as the music director. And so one very brave search committee chairman told me very honestly that the reason I didn't get the job was because they didn't know how to market me. And when I asked him what he meant, he says, "You just don't look like what our audience expects a conductor to look like." And
that
so, of course,
honest, right in your face, huh?
Right in your face. And a lot of people, they'll shout out, "Title IX, you should have sued them." And I laugh and I say, certainly I could have, but after I got over, frankly, the shock and the rage of what he'd said, I realized two things. One is he did me a favor by being honest, because he didn't tell me I wasn't talented or the orchestra didn't like me or I didn't have what it takes. So it wasn't my talent that was the problem. It was just a perception problem and a diversity problem. And so that's what, after, about 3 or 4 months, and I, just stopped, chewing glass, and could kind of calm down. That's when I decided, okay, how am I going to fix this? Because, suing them or doing, that would just be a Band-Aid on a much larger problem, and it really wouldn't have done anybody any good. And so how am I going to transform this rage into positive action? And so the name of Black Pearl, pearls are living gems, and you know, they get a little bit of grit in an oyster, and that oyster covers that grit up with layers and layers of mother of pearl. And
I was always wondering, and the story's coming out right now.
The story's coming out
it's
of
deep.
the name of black pearl.
Yeah.
And so, you know, pearls, I think, are symbols of how we transform difficulties into something beautiful and valuable. And that's what I did with this orchestra.
I think I'm going to read about this in one of the upcoming urban novels. by Jimmy DaSaint.
The story of Black Pearl. How a beautiful revolution was born. But seriously, that was it. And so I just decided with Black Pearl, all right, I was going to right a lot of wrongs that I felt was happening in classical music industry. One, like we said, the perception, the diversity, the lack of inclusion, and just, you know, in general, like, this is a beautiful art form. I think people forget, you know, Mozart for us seems maybe old and crusty, you know, because it was 17 whatever when it was written. But, you know, that was new music. I mean, he was like the rock star. Right. He was the Justin Bieber of the 18th century.
Yes,
you know, people forget that these were, I mean, to them, you know, now we seem like, oh, they're old and crusty, but these were like crazy young composers who, you know, I don't want to, you know, to your young, impressionable listeners, you know, don't do drugs and it's bad things, stay in school. But, like, they did all kinds of terrible, crazy things when they were young. And they also wrote this beautiful music that we still have today. Right. So I think, you know, with Black Pearl, when we put all these, you know, young, talented classical musicians of color from every part of the community out there who bring their passion to the music, that translates to the audience. And so I think, you know, to that extent, Black Pearl is successful, and to the extent that we can encourage other orchestras across the nation to, let the community into your organization, let the community in, give talented, brilliant musicians of color a chance, and see what can happen for your audience, and just the love of the community for your organization. Hopefully that message will go beyond Philadelphia into the rest of the nation.
Wow, that's fantastic. Now, last shout out for people who, you know, are being moved by what you are saying, and they believe in your purpose. Where can they make a contribution?
Oh, man, right on our website. We will, you know, just give us the love in the form of $1 or $2. We would appreciate that. That's always great. Right on our website, there's a Donate Now button, www.blackpearlco.org. Every little bit helps, and we appreciate it.
All right, thank you. Now, stay tuned, because right after this commercial break, we're going to be talking to just a fascinating character and really a very positive story, a person who, you know, has talent, and then from federal prison, like a butterfly, you know, just evolved and came out, and not everybody can do this. So stay tuned as we will be talking to Jimmy DaSaint.
You are listening to In the Know with David O. Informative, substantive, intelligent talk radio on 860 AM WWDB.
My friends, this is Joe Kraus. You've heard me on Philadelphia radio now for over 20 years, and you know I don't often endorse products or people unless they are real game changers. I want to tell you about Weinerman Pain and Wellness, located in Center City, Philadelphia. And at the end of this short personal endorsement, I want you to consider Weinerman Pain and Wellness. If you are recovering from an injury, if you or a family member has been diagnosed with a disorder that has stopped you in your tracks, or if you're like me, determined to learn about wellness while getting yourself prepared to stay healthy so you can enjoy the blessings of your family. Remember the name of this warm and caring location, Weinerman Pain and Wellness. Why should you consider Weinerman Pain and Wellness? Because they are who you expect them to be. Weinerman Pain and Wellness, on the web at WeinermanPainandWellness.com.
Weinerman Pain and Wellness, located at 100 South Broad Street, just south of City Hall. Call Weinerman Pain and Wellness at 215-988-9503. That's 215-988-9503. Call today. Today's broadcast is brought to you by the Philly Labor RX Injured Workers Pharmacy Network, featuring PPC Pharmacy, First Choice Pharmacy, and Precision Scripts, providing injured workers with premium products and services from the point of injury through the entire healing process. The Philly Labor RX Pharmacy Network cares about injured workers.
Every day, the men and women of the United States Marine Corps demonstrate their commitment to defend the American way of life. Since 1775, we have served our nation as a force in readiness.
Get some rear security.
combat operations to humanitarian assistance in every corner of the world. No matter where the mission takes us today, or wherever our country needs us tomorrow, we always remember the land we call home. As Marines, we take a stand for each other, for our nation, for us all. The few, the proud, the Marines.
Welcome back. This is David O, Councilman at Large here in Philadelphia, and you are in the know with David O. Listen, I try to bring you some really exceptional people who are doing great things, have really outstanding experiences, knowledge, expertise, and we'd love to hear from them, and I hope you enjoy this show. We try to make it intelligent, informative, and substantive. Well, let me start by thanking Brian Sanders Photography. If you ever check us out on any of our social media, you will see at times, these beautiful photographs, and that's Brian Sanders Photography. Sometimes I take my own photos, and that's why they don't look so good. But you'll be able to follow me on Facebook at David O, O-H. Instagram at David O Philly, or Twitter at David O Philly. Right now, I got a friend who is really an amazing story in how you can turn your life around, be positive, and really even in some of the most bleak situations, come out positive. And I'm talking about Jimmy DaSaint. Well, his real name isn't DaSaint. That's what he's known as, Jimmy DaSaint Mathis, and he's a former federal prisoner who became, while in prison, an author and later an artist. Well, actually, he was an artist before he went to federal prison, but an entrepreneur, public relations manager, motivational speaker, and producer. He grew up in the Mantua section of West Philly, known as the Bottom. Because of its violence, dilapidated buildings, he and his relatives at that time, they were among the many families living far below the poverty level, and Jimmy quickly encountered the rough life on the streets. And by the age of 15, he had been arrested numerous times and had frequent run-ins with the law. He did get himself together in the early 90s with a rap group called Inner City Hustlers, ICH, which quickly became one of Philly's most successful rap groups. And from there, they really began to have a bright future. But then, tragically, 4 members of the rap group, ICH, were brutally murdered inside a small row house. And it was the first quadruple murder in the city's history. Jimmy himself was shot 10 times, and for 30 days he was in a coma, barely clinging to life. And the group miraculously got together and began to rise up. They were invited to meet Jadakiss, Jay-Z, and Rockefeller Records. 2 members got signed, and things were going very well. But in 2000, the year 2000, DaSaint was sentenced to serve 10 years in federal prison. He was convicted off of a sting set up by a close friend, leaving his family and friends and his group without a leader. And things looked pretty grim. But in prison, he began a new chapter in his life, which he has continued to today. He gives much credit to God. And let's hear from Jimmy DaSaint. Welcome to the show.
What's up, Councilman?
Hey, not too much, man. Let me ask you this. You are into a lot of things. People may know the Philly Hip Hop Awards. That's you right there. Mm-hmm. Urban Celebrity Magazine. That's you as well. Mm-hmm. And you got a show coming up pretty soon at the Trocadero, right?
Yes.
And that's not necessarily a hip-hop show. That's R&B and jazz.
Yeah, R&B and jazz.
Yeah, what date is that?
That's March 24th, Friday, March 24th.
Okay, what time?
It's start about 7 o'clock.
Okay, and what kind of show is that going to be?
It's just R&B. It's really a concert with R&B artists, jazz artists. It's a live jazz band called Excursion. They the house band. So even though I do rap, I deal with rap most of the day. But
I'm just showing your diversity here, man.
Yeah, I love R&B, and so I listen.
Yeah.
That's what I want to listen to all day. But so I wanted to put a show together with music that I like.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? With artists that I know that really sing, really play. You know what I'm saying? So I put it together.
All right, fantastic. Where can people get their tickets? They go
at the Troc.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? They can their Instagram is Troc Philly, TROC Philly. You know what I mean? They can get their tickets.
And where do they find out about Jimmy DaSaint and DaSaint Entertainment?
DaSaintEntertainment.com.
Okay, simple enough, right?
That's simple.
So let me ask you this. How did it occur that you're looking at you're doing 10 years in federal prison, and then you start writing books? How did that happen?
I don't know. It was just like a awakening, it's like I felt like I was supposed to be in prison. Like when I was in prison, everybody else was complaining, and I was like, I really felt like I belonged there for some reason. I was like, if I don't go to prison, I'm going to wind up dying on the streets. So I felt that. You know what I'm saying? So it was like I was in there, and it's like I started writing actually the second day I was in prison. I just was writing, and I just let my cellie read something I wrote. And he's like, that's kind of nice what you wrote, because I was bored.
Right,
you know what I'm saying? I was bored. You know what I'm saying? So I wrote it, and then I said, I'm going to write a full-length novel, and I let all the guys read it around the prison, and they liked it. So I sent it out to a friend of mine.
So you have no training or education. You just got in there, felt like writing, you started writing. You just said to yourself, hey, I'm going to write a full-length novel. What's a full-length novel?
I just wrote. You know what I'm saying? I just wrote, and it was crazy because I had a friend that was a published author who I sent it to, and she was one of the top book authors in the country, or urban, as far as the urban book world.
Let me stop you for a second. How do you have a friend who's a top book publisher? Is that from a prior?
Well, she's from West Philly. If you know Terry Woods, she wrote the book True to the Game, and sold over like 5 million copies. So,
so you were personally friends with her?
Yeah, I knew her from the streets. You know what I'm saying? Her and other book authors also. Right. I just was into something totally different, but I knew people was,
they like what you were writing.
Yeah, they like what I like. What I wrote, and they sent it to New York, to a publishing company in New York, and then the publishing company in New York sent me a contract in prison. And I wound up getting a 3-book publishing deal while I was incarcerated.
Wow.
So that's how that turned out. So I just kept writing, you know what I'm saying, because it was fun.
Right.
And then when you're a little celebrity in prison, because the guys ordering my books actually, I remember being in my cell, and like 2 guys came to my cell, and they had my book before I got it. People ordered it. And they like, Jim, can you sign it? And I'm in my cell, and I'm looking, and I was just like, wow, this is crazy. I was just a drug dealer a year ago. You know what I'm saying? And then I'm looking at my picture on the back of a book like, this is crazy. Then I knew that was my calling. You know what I'm saying? So that's what it was. So I continued to write. And I wrote like 30 novels, and I got like 7 bestsellers out right now.
Right. Now the day you were convicted, how did you feel about life at that time?
I don't know. It just felt like it was supposed to happen. Like, kind of like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
that's pretty unusual.
Yeah, I don't really complain. I know we put ourselves in different positions, different situations.
Yes.
And I know that I was a drug dealer. So this is a part of it. You know what I'm saying? This is a part of that.
You're going to get arrested.
Or
you might
killed.
Or killed, worse, right? Yeah.
So I was the lesser of the,
So federal prison was not as bad as things might have been.
Not really, you know what I'm saying, because I was a first-time nonviolent drug offender. I didn't have a record.
Right.
I went to prison for that many years because of the amount of drugs I had.
Right.
Because the judge didn't want to convict me. The judge actually said at my sentence, he said, this is crazy that I give people with more violent records less time than you, but you're locked up by the FBI.
Yes.
He said if I was locked up by Philadelphia police, I would probably got probation, or because I didn't have a record. I worked at the time. I just was a drug dealer. You know what I'm saying? To make extra money and stuff like that. But you know what I'm saying? They looked on the chart and said, well, you fall under between 120 months and 160 months in federal time. I remember on my fingers when he said, I sentenced you to 100, I'm going to give you the lowest, 120. And I remember, 20 is 12 months in a year. And I was like, that's 10 years. No lie, I said that to the judge. He was really upset. He wrote me while I was in prison.
Oh, wow.
A few times. He was like, your case always bothered me. It always bothered me when I gave you that 10 years.
Right.
Yeah, no lie.
Now, was this a wake-up moment for you in some sense? Like you're in prison, maybe you didn't think you deserved 10 years, or maybe you said, hey, 10 years, that's what comes with it. But what was it that caused you to, to look at it differently than I think almost any person I know would look at it?
Because everybody else was, I wanted to not look at it like everybody else was. They blaming the system. I was blaming me.
In what sense?
And like, you know what I'm saying, I had a son, and I'm out there selling drugs. I had a girlfriend and all that, and I'm selling drugs and doing things that would take me away from that. So when I get taken away, you can't complain. You know what I'm saying? So I never, in 10 years, I never called home asking for money or none of that kind of stuff. I wasn't going to be a burden on anyone. I knew I had to do this time. I had to get myself mentally and physically right, you know what I'm saying, when I come home.
How did you get yourself mentally and physically right? Because there's a lot of people who could relate to you right now. Not that they're in federal prison, but what did you do to get yourself? Reading
and just having an understanding of myself. Because it's like, I always say this, I say I had to lose everything just to find myself.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I had a barbershop and a hair salon, a little recording studio, my rap group and all that kind of stuff. And I really had to lose all that because you be caught on the streets and you caught in the life. When you got a nice car and you getting money every day and you live in a nice little condo and all this kind of stuff, you ain't thinking that all this could be taken away from you.
Right.
That's the last thing on your mind. You know what I'm saying? You just living. You know what I'm saying? I was caught up in living, and I really focused on who I was hurting, who I was harming, and myself, more importantly. I was hurting me. But I had to be set down. That's all.
Right.
And I realized that when I was in, I was like, wow. You know what I mean? Because book writing really was like my therapy. You know what I'm saying? It was like, wow. I mean, I was shot in 97, 10 times. I was in a coma. You know what I'm saying? I go right back. I was in a wheelchair for 6 months. I get out that life instead from being a drug dealer and go back to being a drug dealer. That didn't teach me. So I always looked at it like God was like, look, Jim, I'm going to give you another chance. God, I don't want you out of here. I'm trying to show you something because you're really talented and, a lot of people like you, whatever. And that was the awakening in prison and you in the mountains in Texas and Ohio. And I'm like, wow, I'm locked up doing 10 years.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And my cellie is Rick Ross, the biggest drug dealer in U.S. history. You know what I'm saying? That's my cellie. That's one of my books is written with Rick Ross.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? My book, Black Scarface. And it was just crazy because I was like, what am I doing here? You know what I'm saying? But,
Now tell us about the books you write. What are you writing about?
Urban. I write true stories fictionalized.
So you take a real life incident and you add different characters and you add some other things and so it's like life on the street. Life on the street. Right?
Like I tell you something, when I first got my book deal and I called the publisher.
Yes.
And he was like, I say I just write. I'm not a good editor, none of that stuff. And critiquer, it's like just write those stories that you write because they're very powerful. We got editors to do all that for you. You just keep writing. He's like, you just a natural. Right. You write what you know, and you write it very, very precise. And that's all I do, just write what I know.
And so some of the books that you've written, just to give our audience a flavor of the type of urban street books that you write, Scarface.
Black Scarface.
Black Scarface, Young, Rich and Dangerous.
But that's not all I write.
You do more than that,
yes,
right? And
I wrote On Everything I Love.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote What Every Woman Wants.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I just write what I feel.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Right now I'm working on a book right now called The 21 Lessons of Life. You know what I'm saying? Okay. I really write what I feel.
So there's no set genre. You just write what you feel.
Yeah, just kind of write what I feel, what I know, what I experience.
And how is it that you have such a big fan base? What do you think?
That's from a combination of the music because, I'm the founder of the Philly Hip Hop Awards.
Right.
So I get to nominate and all the artists and producers and people from around the city. So I got that fan base, and then at the same time, I'm one of the few African American males that's like really writing. Like I'm working on 2 books as we speak. So you know what I'm saying. So I got that fan base because I sell a lot of books.
Right.
I mean, I have a new book coming out next month, Black Gotti.
Okay, fantastic. And again, if people want to buy your books or find out about any of your products or services, where do they go?
DaSaintEntertainment.com, or they can follow me on Instagram at Jimmy DaSaint1 and Twitter at 1, and Or Amazon. My books is all over Amazon. All 5 stars.
Okay, so if you Google Jimmy DaSaint, and all that stuff's going to come up. All right, fantastic. Well, let me end by just asking you that of all the things that you do, from the music to the to writing books and PR, what is it that you find in common about all these things that also makes you so good at them?
Because I don't want to be a jack of all trades. I really want to master everything I'm doing. I really want to be the best. So if I'm doing a concert, I want it to be the best concert. You know what I'm saying? If I'm putting a book out, I'm really putting my all in that book and everything I'm doing. So a lot of this stuff happened accidentally. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like becoming a book author, doing these concerts and stuff that I'm doing. It just happened. I asked God why, and I let Him do His job. You know what I'm saying? That's all. That's all. That's all I could do.
Right. Well, listen, I'll say that while that may be true, and I know it is, you also have a completely different attitude from almost anybody I met under those circumstances. I'm sure that had a big impact.
Because honestly, you ever heard what somebody say real quick when they say, you're going to either end up in prison or dead or the grave? Right. I tell people, well, I was in both. I was pronounced dead twice. I was in prison for 10 years. So I got a serious opportunity to do good and to do justice and fix some of the wrongs that I did. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I do it. You know what I'm saying? I'm giving a kid concert at the Truck also for the kids. The New Wave. It's called the New Wave concert. March 19th. It's just for the kids. Because, you know what I'm saying? Because I wanted to do a show where I could bring my 5-year-old son to and he can enjoy it.
Okay. Fantastic. Well, listen, I'm going to go to a short commercial break because don't go anywhere. One of Philly's favorite topics, the Philly Craft Beer Festival. We're going to talk to the founder and organizers right after this.
You are listening to In the Know with David O. Informative, substantive, intelligent talk radio on 860 AM WWDB.
My friends, this is Joe Krause. You've heard me on Philadelphia radio now for over 20 years, and you know I don't often endorse products or people unless they are real game changers. I want to tell you about Weinerman Pain and Wellness, located in Center City, Philadelphia. And at the end of this short personal endorsement, I want you to consider Weinerman Pain and Wellness. If you are recovering from an injury, if you or a family member has been diagnosed with a disorder that has stopped you in your tracks, or if you're like me, determined to learn about wellness while getting yourself prepared to stay healthy so you can enjoy the blessings of your family. Remember the name of this warm and caring location, Weinerman Pain and Wellness. Why should you consider Weinerman Pain and Wellness? Because they are who you expect them to be. Weinerman Pain and Wellness on the web at WeinermanPainandWellness.com.
Weinerman Pain and Wellness, located at 100 South Broad Street, just south of City Hall. Call Weinerman Pain and Wellness at 215-988-9503. That's 215-988-9503. Call today. Today's broadcast is brought to you by the Philly Labor RX Injured Workers Pharmacy Network, featuring PPC Pharmacy, First Choice Pharmacy, and Precision Scripts, providing injured workers with premium products and services from the point of injury through the entire healing process. The Philly Labor RX Pharmacy Network cares about injured workers.
At any given moment, somewhere in America, a baby is taking a first step, a developmental milestone. But for too many parents, a baby's first steps aren't just a milestone. They're a miracle. These are the parents of babies who were born prematurely or with birth defects. It's a crisis affecting more than 500,000 babies in the United States each year. You can help them by joining volunteers like you who walk in March for Babies. The money you raise funds research and local programs that help babies overcome the challenges of premature birth and birth defects. Together, our steps make stronger, healthier babies a reality for thousands of families. Sign up today at marchforbabies.org to take the steps that help make milestones and even miracles possible. Who will you march for?
Introducing the YMCA. What, you already know the why? Or so you think. Sure, you know the why for a swim, a workout, even a game of hoops. But did you know we're more than that? We're a cause. When you take your jump shot at the Y, someone else is getting job training. Take a cardio class, while kids are in an after-school enrichment program. Practice your downward-facing dog as a teen practices her leadership skills. That's the why. We work with people no matter their age, income, or background and give them the opportunity to learn, grow, and thrive, all with one simple goal in mind, to strengthen our community. And we've got so much more that does just that. So while you might think of the Y as that place for lifting weights, we're also about lifting entire communities. Introducing the Y. We're so much more than a place. We're a cause. Visit ymca.net/more.
All right, and we are back. Listen, in the last minutes of this show, I want you to pay attention because there is a really fun event here in Philadelphia. It is the Philly Craft Beer Festival, and it's going to be held on March the 4th this year at the Navy Yard. And to tell us about it is Andrew Calimano, the owner of Starfish Junction Productions, which is an award-winning full-service marketing and event production company. And he is a gentleman who came up with this whole thing, and it's not just here in Philadelphia, but he's here to tell us about it. Andy, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Councilman, for inviting me to speak. I really appreciate it.
Well, for all the beer lovers out there, and listen, I'm not really that big of a beer drinker, but I do love going to these festivals and events. Could you tell our listeners what's in store for them this year?
Well, first of all, Philadelphia is a great beer town. You don't get any better than that.
That's true. It really is.
You've got some great breweries that we've been very fortunate to work with, and we've seen the beer industry within Philadelphia just explode with all the new breweries. So we were very fortunate to start 12 years ago with the Philly Craft Beer Festival. And our festival is this Saturday for the 12th time at the Navy Yard. And we've got breweries now that didn't exist 12 years ago. We've got breweries that didn't exist 3 years ago. We actually have we call it Independence Row. And it's all the independent new breweries that have come up in Philadelphia.
Wow. And I see you could try over 200 beers.
Yeah.
Not all at one time, please, but yeah, and how is this? How long does this festival run?
Well, we have the VIP hour that goes from 12:30 to 1:30, and then the general session goes from 1:30 to 5. So you've got an opportunity to taste some of your favorites, and one of the best things is you get a chance to taste some of the things that you've never tasted before.
Yeah, I think that's always a great thing about these things is, listen, get your favorite and you try something new.
Oh, without a doubt. We've been very fortunate to bring in some breweries, and we've seen them grow. One of the local breweries, Evil Genius, they started out 2 friends from college, and they're just about to open their own brewery in Philadelphia. Wow. So it's a great opportunity to just see the market grow phenomenally.
Yeah, I mean, Philadelphia really has a lot of great things going on there. And, let me say, folks, that this is not just something happening in Philadelphia. This Philly Craft Beer Festival was selected as one of the top 10 beer fests in America by Forbes Travel, winner of Best Beer Fest 3 years in a row by Philly Beer Scene magazine, and U.S. Today says it's one of the top 20 beer festivals in the United States. So that's some pretty big accolades.
Yeah, that was a nice surprise from USA Today. And right now, you can actually vote for us. They have a contest right now where you can vote and see where we wind up out of the top 20. Currently, we're in 11th place. So
where do people go to vote for you?
You can go to 10best.com, and it's the Best Beer Festival. And let's make Philly proud. We're the only festival out of Philadelphia that's in the list right now. So
okay. Now, not to plug some other things, but I will say, listen, you do more than the Philly Craft Beer Festival. You do stuff in New Jersey, New York, Massachusetts, Connecticut as well.
Yeah, we've expanded. We also do a Pour the Core. It's a hard cider festival that we do down at the Navy Yard. And we do a coffee and tea festival. So you get to sample different coffees and teas from around the world.
Wow. When is that?
That's actually March 18th and 19th in Brooklyn. And then it will come back to Valley Forge in November. So.
Okay. Well, there's a lot of events that you're doing. I'm looking at the list: the Bourbon Festival, as you said, Coffee and Tea Festival, Spring Craft Beer Fest, Blue Point Cast Ales Festival, Pour the Core Hard Cider Festival, Great Beer Expo, Long Ireland's Pintwood Derby, Long Island Craft Classic, Long Island Fresh Hop Festival, Long Island Potato Festival, Valley Forge Beer and Cider Festival, and BeerCon, as in Connecticut Beer Con.
Yep, we've got some pretty interesting events. One of the events we do with a brewery on Long Island, we put together the P-I-N-T Wood Derby. It's just like the Pinewood Derby for kids.
Right.
Because everybody knows the dads make the cars anyway.
Yes.
So we get all the adults. It's 21 and older, and you should see they're just like little kids with their cars, spending all the time with the graphite and making sure they run fast.
Right. Now 12 years ago, was this your idea, the first or group of friends? How did this come about?
Well, I had done a festival in New York City purely by accident, and I didn't know anything about beer at the time. I just got a friend of mine said he wanted to do a festival in New York City, and we put it on in 3 months. I didn't know how hard it was going to be. I didn't know anything besides Coors Light, Miller Lite, and Budweiser, and it was a huge learning curve. And we put the festival on, and we lost so much money we had to do it a second time.
Oh my goodness!
So from there, we kind of grew the festivals.
Okay, fantastic. Well, I'm looking forward to March the 4th for the Philly Craft Beer Festival at the Navy Yard. And are there any hints or little secrets you could share with our listeners for this event?
Yeah, there's a bunch of things to really enjoy it. First of all, take a look at our website. We list all the breweries, and what's nice about that is you can pick and choose which breweries you want to check out first. What we've done to make it easier is we've created just one section for all the independent Philly breweries that a lot of people haven't had the opportunity to taste. Okay. So that's good. And then we've got some of the bigger breweries, Bell's, New Belgium, and Ballast Point. So we've brought them in from across the country. And we have Manayunk and Sly Fox, who've been around for over 20 years, but still are great breweries and brewing great beers.
Okay, well, that's wonderful. Well, thank you very much for coming on the show. And let me say, everybody, tune in next Tuesday when I'm going to have Carl Eggert, Vice President of Comcast, Ben O'Neill, a Grammy-nominated guitarist, songwriter, musician, and Anna Storma from the Women's Veteran Center. So tune in next week, and stay tuned for That Show Business with Chuck Darrow.
You've been listening to In the Know with David O. on 860 AM WWDB. Tune in again next Tuesday at 2 p.m. for more informative, substantive, intelligent talk radio with Philadelphia Councilman David O.